Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
It's been a little while since we talked about Hertz, the rental car company. And of course, we've talked about them so many times that they have to do something different or new really to get on my radar. If Hertz simply has a typical problem that a rental car company might have, I go, oh, okay, well, that's Hertz. But, Greg and a bunch of other people sent me this yesterday. This version's from TechCrunch.com. Zach Whitaker wrote it. Hertz says customers' personal data and driver's licenses were stolen in the data breach that they had. And not their driver's licenses themselves, but all the data on their driver's licenses. At least the information that Hertz was keeping. And, that's one of those things. I've never liked the idea that places store all this information. Don't worry, we'll keep it safe. Despite the fact that hacks like this happen all the time. Now, I'll admit that a very good friend of mine was vacationing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, out in the middle of nowhere. And there's a little motel that he used to use, him and his family. And he went in there one year after he'd been there the year before. And the guy said, and said his name and pulled out a little 3x5 card. He goes, I've got all your information here, including all of his credit card information, which he said, I don't remember him ever asking me about that. And how secure is his 3x5 card? But car rental giant Hertz has begun notifying its customers of a data breach that included their personal information and driver's license information. The rental company, which also owns Dollar and Thrifty, said in notices on its website that the breach relates to a cyber attack on one of its vendors between October 24 and December 24. And, I did travel a little while ago, and I did not rent Hertz, but I'm pretty sure I used either a Dollar or a Thrifty. So I inadvertently was living dangerously. The stolen data varies by region, but largely includes Hertz customer names, dates of birth, contact information, driver's license information, payment card information, and workers' compensation claims. Hertz said a smaller number of customers also had their social security numbers taken in the breach, along with other government-issued identification numbers. I'm curious to know why Hertz has a social security number. I don't remember ever being asked that to rent a car. But notices on Hertz websites disclosed the breach to customers in Australia, Canada, European Union, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom. Now, they've also disclosed the breach with several U.S. states, including California and Maine. Hertz said at least 3,400 customers in Maine were affected, but did not list the total number of affected individuals, which is likely to be significantly higher. A spokesperson for Hertz would not provide TechCrunch with a specific number of individuals affected by the breach, but said it would be inaccurate to say millions of customers are affected. So it would be inaccurate to say millions. You understand that plural of millions, millions is a plural. Therefore, it might be accurate to say a million. I don't know. Company attributed the breach to a vendor, a software maker, which last year was at the center of a mass hacking campaign by a prolific ransomware gang from another country. Hertz is one of dozens of companies that used the software at the time of their data thefts. The ransomware gang claimed last year to have exploited a zero-day vulnerability in the widely used enterprise file transfer products, which allow companies to share large sets of data that is sensitive, but over the internet. By breaching these systems, the hackers stole reams of data from corporate customers. Soon after, they claimed on its dark web leak site that it stole data from close to 60 companies by exploiting a bug in the systems. In a later post, they claimed dozens more alleged corporate victims. So they apparently have a dark web leak site, and that's where they talk about this stuff. So the data extortion campaign became one of the most notable mass hacks of last year. At the time, Hertz, which was named on the website of the company whose program it was, said it had no evidence that their data or their systems were affected, but apparently now they say, yeah. So on Monday, Hertz's spokesperson told TechCrunch it found no evidence that Hertz's own network was affected by the breach, but confirmed that the data was somehow acquired by an unauthorized third party that we understand exploited zero-day vulnerabilities within the platform we're talking about. in October 2024 and December 2024. And there they said and, not through, so implying it happened in October, but not November. But again, I'm learning that a lot of these spokespeople often speak vaguely, and they might be doing it for a reason or simply to just be less specific because they're not even sure. Who knows? But a person speaking on behalf of the company that had the software program at the heart of this did not respond to TechCrunch's inquiry on Monday. So that's why whenever I'm working with somebody, like I'm ordering something online, for instance, and there's that little box that says, would you like us to save your information for further use? I always say no. No, I would not like that. Now, you and I both know there's a good chance they will anyway. Because you got to give them the information. Do we trust that every single entity you deal with on the internet is going to automatically, oh, this guy doesn't want us to hang on to his information, so we won't do that. I wonder about that. But I remember my friend telling me when he saw the 3x5 card come out that had his name, address, license information, and also his credit card information. And he thought, well, that's not good that information is just sitting here in a little box on somebody's desk, 400 miles from where I live. And who works here? I mean, it was apparently a family-run business, mom and pop kind of thing. But did they hire any locals to come in and work? And would a local who came in and worked one day and needed to borrow some money, so to speak, to order something off the internet, might they just do that by going, oh, let's grab the information out of this little box here, and one of our customers will buy me something as some sort of a gift, But I like I said, there are a couple companies that I have my information stored with, but I'm always in the back of my mind going, but I'm living dangerously by doing that. But again, this hack appears to largely affect Australia, Canada, the European Union, New Zealand, and then UK, but also just a couple states in the US. So it might be that if you're not in one of those two states, it's not going to affect you. And so I'm very curious to know how the data was partitioned in their computers such that they could get at two states but not the other 48. And that sounded odd to me. I'm sure there's people in the audience who go, Steve, that makes complete sense. Let me explain to you why. And I understand that. I'm not saying that it sounds odd in the sense that it's not possible. I'm just saying it seems odd to me until I hear a better explanation. But the last time I rented a car, I flew into a fairly small airport. And it's an airport I'd never been to before. And I remember going on to one of those travel sites where you can compare prices. And I remember looking at the various prices there. And there's certain rental companies that I prefer and some that I avoid. Okay? So if I see a rental and it's the only thing available is Hertz, I might use them. But I generally use other companies that are more well-known, and I've had some great experiences with them. But, they're not advertisers or anything, so I'm not going to sit here and name names because it's just personal experiences for me. I have friends who use Hertz and go, I use them all the time. I have no problems. That's fine. But the fact that they also own the other companies, like I said, I think one of them is one that I rented. And I had no problems with them. I had no problems other than how slow their service was. And I realized what was going on when I got off the plane, got my luggage, walked over to the car rental area, and there was a big, long desk. And it had those three names. And Hertz was one of them, but I'd rented from one of the other two. And there's one person walking back and forth. What company are you? Oh, hang on. And they'd walk over here. And they'd walk over here. And you realize, I think there's a connection between these three, which is why they have one employee doing a big, long desk. So there's the thing. If you are a Hertz customer in any of those places, there's a chance that your data got hacked by a group that's been talking about this now on the dark web. And you might want to look into that. I think they're contacting customers to let them know. In fact, it says specifically in the first sentence, they've begun notifying customers of the data breach. And the question is, what can they do about it now, if anything? And I'm not sure they can do anything about it, really. So Greg and everybody else, thanks for sending it. A lot of people sent it from TechCrunch.com. Zach Whitaker wrote that. Hertz says customers' personal data and driver's licenses were stolen in a data breach. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law.
Never let fear decide your fate.